I got offense first, so I got to switch this over because I'm foolish. All right, here we go. So we look at Seattle, they go bunch. And listen, one of the predications that, how did I say that wrong? One of the things that the Seahawks or the Minnesota Vikings will do is they're gonna show and roll coverage. There's a lot. You see they're trying to poach on the backside here. When you poach on the backside and you give a good player, I think this is DK, free release, and you're poaching the backside bunch look with that safety, I mean, you're just asking for trouble here. So what I mean by that, we're reading 3 on the other side here by this safety at the 12-yard line between the hash and the numbers. He's got his chest pointed the wrong direction. They're just going to throw the fade to a unit touchdown. So there's opportunities like this abound. So you go empty here. And this is just one hell of a throw, quite frankly. And I think the number of the plays actually, Gino really thread the needle a couple times in this game. But you look at, if I go back to inside slot on this trips look here, they're manned up all over the board with 2 really, really deep safeties. And you'll see them play at times really deep. Now, this is a comeback game for the Seahawks. So there's part of that is kind of baked in. But you can make these window throws. Now they start walking up. They got Van Ginkel stood up here. And when you go motion and you've got all these players here, there's a lot of traffic to be sorted out. So they go motion to bunch, and they're going to essentially run a pick, a double pick with the motion guy and the tip of the spear, and they're going to run Jackson Smith-Njigba around for the wheel. Minnesota gets caught up. And again, I think as much motion into bunch looks and then just having those different releases is going to help you, especially with these guys. There's 2 things that it does when it gets a team like Minnesota. 1, it declares the pressure very quickly. And then 2, I think a lot of this stuff is just hard to get out of it, especially with the skill set that the Packers receivers have. We see this all the time where Jordan Love is really good at this point of figuring out who's going to be open early on those plays and getting them the football. So you got those 2 guys in the A gap. You got 5 guys essentially playing this coverage here. You got 2 obviously pressed up, but really you got 3 deep. And of course you got man on the slots, right? So technically you're calling this single high, but I always look at these as like, this looks like an umbrella coverage to me, just by the way they line up. And everybody bails. I'm talking about those 2 slot guys. And so, listen, if you have time, when there's so much space between the first level, and there really is no second level, and the third level, because those third level guys are bailing, you're gonna find holes in the operation. The question always is going to be, can you hold up pressure wise? It's Jordan Love will be able to throw and hit open receivers against this football team if he has time. Now, this is an interesting scheme, and you just always wonder, how sustainable this is. They didn't have very many good runs in this game, and when you're playing against a team that's holding teams to under 4 yards a carry and 87 yards per game, you got to kind of figure out things that are going to work, and a lot of that has to do with their interior defensive line. You would think you'd run a lot of doubles. They do a good job at taking on double teams. So sometimes it's better just to fold this tight end back in and just get a free hitter on that backside backside linebacker, and then just single block every once in a while. And again, they had 2 good plays on this, but quite frankly, there just wasn't a lot of good runs on this last tape to look at. But they see this fold block by the tight end twice. Now he's leading up on that backside backer, and they don't even block. I go back, I said, if this works, because it's like they don't even account for the play side linebacker in this scheme. They just push everybody on the line of scrimmage to the right, single block with Tomlinson. They block out with Cross. Really, Cross makes the block here by opening the hole. Tight end comes in, and that's all you get. Now, this is the big deal. with the Packers or any team that's playing a team that likes to show so many guys up. If you're going to go 7 up, there's a guy on the right you don't see, and you got double A's. Regardless if they bail or not, you got to be able to win right now because there's a gap. Again, we saw it on the sideline copy. There's a gap between that first level of defense. There is no second level right now, and then that third level. There's this monster gap. Even if they're bailing, you just don't have time to get back when the receivers are running full speed downhill. So find your time and make the plays when you can. This is an opportunity where Geno just throws a bad ball or a bad coverage. But you see, it's a question of finding time. And look how much space there is in the middle of the field. I think I'll show one more of these. Might be here. So we go under center. We go play action pass. And this is what I'm talking about. You have to use the field against the Minnesota Vikings. A lot of teams are going to say, oh, yeah, quarterback likes throwing in routes. Yeah, like no shit. Everybody likes throwing in routes because in routes are not as hard to throw. It's right in front of you. Distances aren't as bad. The ball doesn't tail off. You can step into the throw a little bit easier. Of course, they like throwing the ball across the middle. But you got to use the entire field against a defense, in particular, one that has so many pressures, because you have to spread it out and give the quarterback something to look at. This right here is just a jumbled mess. And you're going to make plays because you have good players, but use the entire field and give yourself a chance at success. Now, this is one of the picks, and it's like, why did you have an interception? Well, because you got everybody covered. You're all jumbled up in the middle of the field. They bring the safety late, and instead of throwing it to the check down where the safety's coming from, he's already turned the other way. And instead of just throwing this ball out, and this is why, teams lose games, those are the other team. They're going to stress Josh Myers. They're going to try to stress him, and they'll do that by putting a guy up over the top of him. Especially if they see the way we've been snapping the ball for the last couple of years, right? Where you put your head under, blah, 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 blah. The center's got to do all the work. And then they're going to run a lot of pick stunts. And they'll do 2- and 3-man games, and they'll use the center, and they'll try to always involve that guy. And they might be able to just do it with a pick on the center. They might be able to do it with a pick on the guard, and that player comes around off the tackle. But they are going to try to do that as often as possible. And the reason they do it is because pressure equals picks, get the ball out of Jordan Love's hands. And then there's just a couple of these, again, throwing the football away. And all of that is, as you can see here, so Van Ginkel stood up. I don't think, me personally, I think the Packers offensive line is much better than the Seattle offensive line in terms of pass protection across the board. Not necessarily at every position, but across the board. Like this play, Van Ginkel right here, there is no way on God's green earth that if he is double teamed initially, he's going to get just a cakewalk here to the quarterback. Okay, so you see what I'm saying is you see some of this on tape, and you go, oh yeah, you got to go, because you look at the stats. You watch the film and you go, maybe that works. I just don't see it working. Here's a question: if you got to win pre-snap, Jordan Love has to know if we're going to shoot. And the receiver has to be aware and take the open space. You usually try to throw right now to where the guy came from, and they don't have anybody paying attention. The ball should be out in the pocket, top of the field here. You got the 2x2 on the top of the field. Right now, turn your eyes around. The linebacker left. The ball's out. This is how you win football games, right? That's a 10-yard completion with the opportunity to run after the catch. Instead, he takes a sack. Difference in football games right there. Now, is that Geno's fault? Is that the receiver's fault? I have no idea. But I do know that the operation has to be, if the linebacker leaves, turn your head around and quarterback, get him the football. It's a real simple operation. When you're running all these deep routes in particular, Packers do this from time to time, not really as much, but Seattle likes to run some deeper stuff. Minnesota likes to run some deeper stuff. When that happens, you have to have answers for when they bring pressure, and that's probably the easiest one.